Hi guys, welcome back to Spill the Tea with me. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about why I know, or how I know I'm done having babies after my third. So, a little bit of a backstory. When me and Dan got together, we both was like, we want 4 kids, would love to have 4 kids. So Dan has only got one brother, I've only got one brother. I have 3 stepbrothers, but I have one brother. So I always wanted a sister. I always wanted to be part of a big family. So I think that was kind of why Dan wanted to as well, because he was like, it was only me and my brother, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's purely why we was like, yeah, 4 kids. So we had our first, Aria, and that was such an amazing, surreal experience. Like, we didn't find out what we was having on her, so it was just so overwhelming. Like, from a young age, I'd always wanted to have a daughter. I think most girls grow up thinking, oh, I can't wait to have a baby, and I'd love to have a girl, so you can take them shopping and you can do all these things with them. And yeah, I think it's just one of those things. Most girls, I would say, would like to have a girl. So I was besotted with her, and I literally cried so hard when I found out she was a girl. I can remember the first thing I said was, "What is it?" But yeah, I was so happy when I found out she was a girl. I actually lost my mother when I was really young too, so I always craved that like mother-daughter relationship. So for me, it was a very emotional time. But then we went on, like, she was absolutely amazing. Like, I had no sickness at all through my pregnancy. I had literally the perfect pregnancy. I had a nice, neat little bump. I was super skinny at the time because I had no kids before that. So I was literally like so skinny, and I thought I was big at the time. And it was smooth sailing. There was no issues. When it came to giving birth, I had to have an episiotomy, and I had to have a ventouse used to help get the baby out, because she did get stuck there a little bit, because I was getting really exhausted. I was being sick when I was giving birth. I actually was sick both times having girls. I was never sick when I was pregnant with Finley. I was never sick when I was giving birth to Finley. But with the girls, I was violently sick while giving birth. I weren't sick throughout the pregnancy, but giving birth, I was horrendous. So yeah, I had to have help with her, but she was out, within seconds then, and it was such a magical experience. So that kind of led me into a false sense of security, and I was like, right, I want another one. So there's 14 months between our first 2 kids. So Finley then came along. I can remember when it came to the scan for Finley, I really wanted a boy, and Dan really wanted a boy, and I couldn't sleep the night before. I don't know why. I felt so much pressure to find out. Like, we actually found out at the 20-week scan on Finley, and I found it so stressful, and I felt so much pressure to produce a boy, so much pressure to be the clean-cut, perfect family, and there was no pressure put on me for that, but I personally could not sleep. I made myself feel physically sick the night before, and I don't know why. It did turn out, obviously, that he was a boy, And I was very lucky in that respect, because I would have been happy either way, obviously. But at the time, I just felt so much pressure. I put it on myself, and I just felt like I had to produce a boy. Why? I don't know. I don't know whether there was hormones or what, but yeah, at the time, I was losing my mind, hoping for a boy. So we was very lucky with Finley, and again, I had no sickness throughout the pregnancy. I was literally sick once, and that was one time. It wasn't like sick for ages. I was sick one time. And we actually found out that I was pregnant with Finley it was the weekend after my husband's 21st birthday. Because I'd organised a 21st birthday party for him on the weekend. So we was home and we had the party. He was obviously really, really drunk. I didn't really drink at the time anyway, so I hadn't had nothing. And I can remember everybody gone home, and our bathroom kind of like was attached to our kitchen. It was like it was an extension. I'm not really sure, but yeah, it was literally like right next to it. So it went straight. It was like a really long kitchen. And he was in the kitchen just eating like leftover stuff from the party. I went for a wee and done a test at the same time, and I can remember saying to him, I'm pregnant, and we literally was both on the floor crying our eyes out at stupid o'clock in the morning, him pissed as a fart. And yeah, that will stick in my mind forever, that memory. And it was just so emotional. It was lovely. With Finley, I almost gave birth in the car. So I was only in the hospital for 8 minutes. I was screaming that much that I had people running down the hill that were just about to start their shift helping me into the hospital. They came down off the ward and had a wheelchair there for me because they could hear me screaming so loud. I had people, random people, that were just waiting outside, grabbing my bags for me and helping me. And yeah, at the time, me and Dan didn't drive either, so our niece and nephew was in the back seats, and I was obviously screaming and swearing and everything. So every time I started screaming, they had to be there like covering their ears. And yeah, it was eventful. Literally 8 minutes. They just about got me onto the bed, and yeah, he was there. But yeah, he was fast. I didn't have no sickness. I was fine. We waited a little bit then because my mental health took a real downward spiral after having Finley. I had major postnatal depression and anxiety, and I couldn't leave the house. Really, I hated it. I would leave the house if I had to. If I had to go down the shop or something, I would leave the house then, and that was it. I found it so difficult to, I don't know, like when you got one child, trying to get dressed and whatever, when you got to get one child dressed and ready, it's easy. When you've got to get 2 children ready, yourself ready, sort a changing bag for 2 kids, and your mental health isn't great, it's very difficult to think about going out of the house. And it sounds so silly, but it was such an achievement for me if I got out the house. Like because I had a double pram and the street was so narrow, the door was so narrow and everything, I literally had to put the pram up outside the door, put the kids in, and then go out. and 9 times out of 10 you change one of their nappies, the other one's stripping themselves off, and then you sort the other one out and the other one's nappy needs changing again. So it was like an endless battle trying to make sure you got everything. Or it'd be like, oh, it's food time now, we'll have food first, and I'll give you a bottle and whatever, and then it'll be like, no, actually now I'll do this first, I'll have a cup of tea first, and then before you know it, the day is gone. So yeah, I found it really difficult with Finley, and it took me a couple of years. It's only recently that I've actually got back in a good place. I was when I got pregnant with Frankie, I was in a good place then mentally. Then I got a bit up and down again. Nothing major, but I did need to up my medication. Now I'm in a good place again, surprisingly, considering the amount of stuff that I do on a daily basis and the amount of things I've got going on currently. I'm actually in a really good place. I do have my days, obviously, when I'm really down and I don't want to see anyone, I don't want to speak to no one, I don't want to do nothing. But that is normal. I have more happy days and more upbeat days, productive days than I have down days. So that's a major thing for me at the minute. I can remember at one point after having Finley, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago now. So he would have been about 3. I know it was 2018 because it was when we was planning the wedding. So I was depressed and all I've ever wanted was to get married, have a family and everything. And a lot of the planning kind of like took its toll on me. And I was really stressed about money. I was really stressed about everything else. It was coming up to Christmas. We got married in the April. So a lot of the planning was getting done before Christmas. I was stressed about everything. And like I said, I was depressed as it was. So I felt I got to a point where I was suicidal, and luckily enough, I didn't do anything. I spoke to Dan about it and he encouraged me to go to the doctors, and from then I was okay then, because I can remember I came off my medication as well for the wedding and I went cold turkey. I don't know why, there was something in my head saying I wanted to be me, and to be me I had to be off medication to be the real me. But no, I'm more me now than I ever have been, and I'm on double the amount that I was on before of my medication. So yeah, if I could tell myself something back then, I would have told myself to just take the tablets, take the medication, stop being silly and enjoy your day. I did have an amazing day, to be fair. We had the best wedding ever and I would do it again in a heartbeat. I'd love to wear a dress again. But yeah, it's really expensive. So I'd happily just do a party and wear like a nice dress. Just do a anniversary party. It's coming up. Oh my God, I don't even know. I think it might be 5 years in April. Four years in April, 5 years next April. Yeah. So we then had Frankie. So that she's 2 now. So we had Frankie in 2021. We kind of like, we was trying for a long time with Frankie. We was trying for almost a year, I think. We was on and off trying because it was when COVID was starting to come about and we was a bit nervous and we was scared for me to get pregnant because all the restrictions that were coming into play, and it would make me vulnerable. It would make me you know, more susceptible to catching COVID. Back then, we didn't really know what it was. And yeah, it was a bit nerve-wracking. So we did stop trying for a little bit. But we ended up catching in the end. Decided to try, obviously, and end up catching. We were so happy about it, and I wouldn't change a thing. The way it happened and everything. And I feel like Frankie kind of like just slotted into the family. Like, she was always there. There was no like adjustments or anything needed. I feel like the jump to 2 children was very difficult, but the jump to 3, it literally felt like she'd been there every single day anyway. Like, after a week, we were just so used to her being there that it was just like, what did we do when she wasn't here? And it was just so normal. We was used to having a busy lifestyle. We was used to having kids about. We knew what we was doing. Obviously, there's stuff you forget, but we knew what we was doing. So yeah, with Frankie, things were a bit different. We was very lucky, again, like I said, in respects to my pregnancy. I wasn't sick at all, although I couldn't eat nothing. I literally lived off frozen flavoured water. I literally just ate that constantly and drank that constantly. And tip tops and slushies. I couldn't stomach anything. And the smell of meat and that would really turn my stomach. I wasn't actually sick, but it made me feel really sick. So yeah, I was off my food for a long time during that pregnancy. But we was very lucky with the restrictions as well for COVID, because when it came to the 12-week scan, they was already letting partners come for the 12-week scan anyway. But when it came to the 20-week scan, the week before my scan, they announced that partners could come to the 20-week scan as well. So my partner obviously got the chance to come and see. So Dan was allowed to wait outside the room and then be called in just for the actual scan. And then after the scan, then he had to go back, wait outside while I got sorted out and whatnot. And if there was anything they needed to discuss and everything after that, like, but yeah, we was very lucky with that. And then when it came to me giving birth, we actually was in the new hospital in Cwmbran. So it had only just been opened, and we had a private little room. I was fuming though, because I did lose my maternity coat. I bought a maternity coat and I lost it. I don't know what happened, but it was left in one of the rooms that I was in, because I was transferred from, I was in like 2 or 3 different rooms, and yeah, no clue where it went, but there we go. Frankie's birth was the worst. It was all natural again, but it was awful. I was sick so much. I had gas and air, but that was making me more sick. They was telling me to eat because I was losing energy. So I had to eat things and then instantly, pretty much being sick straight away. I had to try and drink like the isotonic drinks to keep my energy up. Again, like I said, I was being sick all the time. So I was literally like constantly mouthful, sick, push. And it was just like crazy. I can remember crying my eyes out, saying I couldn't do it. And I really, really struggled giving birth to her. It was a long time as well. I can't even remember it, but it was the longest pregnancy out of the 3. The longest birth out of the 3, sorry. And yeah, I really struggled with that. But the aftercare was a lot better. I found that I was in my own little private room with an ensuite and everything, and it was really, really nice. I had the privacy, you know. When I had Aria, we was in a ward, and you obviously got mothers and babies all around you. I was a first-time mum. I was scared to change nappies, tidy. I was scared to try and breastfeed. I was so nervous breastfeeding. That I ended up giving up in the hospital because I just wanted to go home. I got told that if you didn't learn to breastfeed before you left, you had to stay there until you knew. So I was like, right, I'm going home. I'll just give him a bottle, because I was getting so worked up with it, and being my first time on a ward with all these other women, I felt really intimidated and really nervous. So, and every time the baby would fall asleep, another baby would cry and wake her up. So yeah, I was so glad to have our private little room this time. And with Frankie, I found as well that, like, Dan was, believe it or not, even though, like, with the COVID and all that, they let him stay till like 9-10 o'clock in the night. I can't even remember what time I gave birth to her. With Frankie, it was just such a surreal experience that I just felt like I didn't, like, keep track of stuff as much with her, which I'm quite gutted about. But I've still got her time of birth, but it's just on a note somewhere. But there we go. So yeah, anyway, it was really nice because of that, and I really wanted to give breastfeeding a go this time round. So it was nice to have our own little room so that I can actually, like, practice and get to grips with it myself in privacy. And if I needed anything, I could call somebody to come and help without having to, like, have the curtains round and be all, like, you know. So it was really nice to have that support, and I actually managed to breastfeed for like 2 or 3 weeks, which to me was amazing. I was absolutely devastated when I had to stop, but I weren't producing the milk quick enough, and she just was getting starving, and yeah, it was just causing me pain, and it was really draining and hard work because she just wasn't getting enough. So yeah, I ended up stopping breastfeeding at like 2 or 3 weeks. I did try and pump in between, but it just didn't happen. She was just wanting it so quick that it weren't happening. But I'm proud of myself for what I achieved. I tried my best, and she was fed, she's healthy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy either way. At the time, I did really beat myself up about it, but I'm fine now. But I think Frankie, we always said, like, when we come to it, it was like, she's our last. We knew she was going to be our last. And how I know now that we're done, and that we are not going to change our minds and this, that and the other, is because back when I had Aria and when I had Finley, if I seen a baby, I'd be like, oh, that baby's so cute. It'd make me broody. Oh my God, I really want another one. And I'd genuinely be like making little things to Dan. I'd be like, oh, don't you want another baby? And all these little, like, comments just to see how he'd react. And then if he would say no, I'd be like, and deep down it hurt. I'd be like, oh my God, no, I'm gutted. If I said to him now, oh, do you want another baby? And he said no, I'd be happy. So it's kind of like, it's kind of a shift in how you are as well. Like, when Aria and Finley were born, I didn't look anything towards the future other than being in the moment with them. I I didn't, like, in regards to career and all that. But when Frankie was born, I kind of was like, right, this is my 5-year plan. I am going to become a youth worker. I am going to learn to drive. And by the time Frankie's in school, I can go into a full-time job and I'll be driving, so I'll be able to get there myself. And I'm currently on my last week. I've got a couple more days now. By the time this video is posted, my course is going to be completed. I've got 1 more year. Well, I say 1 more year. I start next month and I'll have till perhaps September, October time. So the end of this year, I will be a fully qualified youth worker. So, and Frankie's 2. I've got then 3 years or 2 years or whatever to get my driving done. I've renewed my provisional because that run out, so I've got to do my theory and everything again. But I'm on the right track to my 5-year plan, so I'm happy with that. And I could never see myself even thinking about stuff like that when I'd had Aria and Finley. I was always thinking, well, there's no point me doing this because I'm gonna have another baby. There's no point me doing this because I want another baby. There's no point me working out because I'm gonna put the weight back on when I get pregnant. And I was constantly thinking like that. And another way I know as well is I was constantly on to Dan because he agreed and I agreed that he would get the snip. And he wanted it just as much as I did. I didn't pressure him before anybody gets jumping on this post. But his memory is absolutely awful. So I just kept, have I rung him? Have I rung him? Have I rung him? And he'd be like, no, I forgot. No, I forgot. I'll do it tomorrow. So there was a time in that period that, because I said to him, I'm not going on anymore birth control because it messed with my hormones so much. And I'd been on birth control since I was like 14, something like that, 13, 14. I didn't want to be on birth control the rest of my life. I wanted my body to do what it naturally should do, and I didn't want to put these things in my body and it be affecting me long term. So I wanted to come off it because the extra hormones and the changing and stuff, and like the fact that it was affecting my weight gain, it was affecting everything, giving me headaches, and it was making me down. And I just wanted to come off it all. So that was the agreement we had, as I was coming off all the birth control and he was going to have the snip. So we had a little scare once or twice in the period between the waiting list. Like, I was on the waiting list to be sterilised as well because it was taking him so bloody long. But I actually had the letter through to have my appointment the week that he finally rung him and checked where he was, because he had a letter through saying he could book the appointment, but he just kept forgetting to ring to book the appointment. So he booked the appointment then, and they was like, oh yeah, it's in like 2 days. So he had it done then. But when we had those scares, the reason I knew for a fact that there was no like doubt in my mind that I really don't want any more kids was, I feel like in the past, if I've had scares, and even if at the time I'm not necessarily ready for it, I was always kind of gutted if I had a negative test, no matter what the situation. Even if I would have had, I don't know, a really bad time, not be able to support a baby financially at the time, no matter what the situation, I would have been gutted. Even though I know realistically I couldn't have done it, I would have been gutted. But when we had those scares, I was actually relieved. I was crying, waiting for the results, just in case I was pregnant, because I don't physically think I could cope having 4 children mentally. Financially, we would have to get a new car. I want to enjoy our kids now. They're getting to the age that they're like, they're independent. They're not going to need us much more. Like, I'm feeling a bit like old and non-needed. My daughter is going to be 8 this year, and it's like, it's bonkers. It's gone so fast, and I want to just sit back and relax and enjoy life with them and go on holidays, go on adventures and do things together. I don't want to be having that many children that I can't afford to even go and do nice things with them, because I can just about afford to feed them. I don't want to be putting that strain on my mental health. It's not fair on them, it's not fair on me, and it's not fair on Dan. So I knew we was done when that happened, and then he had the snip, and obviously there's a moment, like, it's a bit like bittersweet, because I was like, oh, thank God that's done. But at the same time, it's like the realization, you're like, no, I ain't having no more. Because it is sad, because every milestone now that happens with Frankie, it's like, yes, I don't have to do it again. But then it's like, oh, I don't have to do it again. That's the last time I'm ever going to have to do that. So it is quite sad and happy. It's a weird feeling, I gotta be honest. But there's some stuff that I will never miss. So when Frankie's potty trained, I'll be loving life, because I don't ever want to do that again after she's done, because I absolutely hate potty training. But yeah, there's stuff like I miss. Like, obviously, there's going to be things that I'm like, oh, how cute. But I don't feel like I actually want any more children. And I'm happy with the family we've got. If anything, we'll have a dog in the future, because Dan is desperate for a dog. He has been since we got together. But I've always been like, no, not yet. No, not yet. Because realistically, we are so busy all the time that we genuinely would not have enough time for a dog right now. It wouldn't be fair on the dog, because we do stuff every day after Dan finishes work, and in the day I'm busy, and yeah, it just wouldn't be fair. And not only that, I want to actually spend this time with Frankie while she's young. I had the time with Finley and I had the time with Aria, so I want the time with Frankie. So yeah, I feel like it's not quite the right time to have a dog yet, but maybe soon in the future. Maybe once Frankie's in school and I'm working, then at least then we'll have a set schedule, we'll know what's happening, and hopefully I'll be driving, I'll be able to like take the dog out in the morning, or Dan will be able to do it before he goes to work, and then in the evening we'll be able to go for a walk and stuff like that. You know, we'll figure it out then, but at the moment it's a no. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a little bit different. Like I said, it's all about my journey in motherhood and how I know I'm not ready for, no, how I know that I do not want any more children. So I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know your experiences. I'd love to hear them. Thanks, bye.